Yeah.
Ooh, let's start with the music.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode, or shall I say, to a brand new episode
Wow, I know.
of A
Well,
Life on
we're
Purpose.
back.
We are
We're
back.
back. We had a little bit of a break, had to take some time off for the holidays and just kind of unwind a bit. But we're back with our live show. We have some amazing experts lined up for you guys here to bring you some value and, have some fun with it at the same time.
That's it. We are excited. And as you can see, we have brought it onto a new platform. We are now on YouTube, stepping it up for the year 2022. So as we all get settled and you guys also get comfortable, we would love to know, first of all, where you're tuning in from. And also, if you can hear us, see us, that would be fabulous.
Right. And definitely we want to start by saying thank you to our sponsors, Meridiano Zero. These guys are awesome. We just found a whole new family here in Merida, Mexico. Yes. Oh, yeah, we moved in case you haven't.
Oh yeah, we've got to update you guys. But yes, we are now in Mexico, and thank you so much, muchas gracias, Meridiano Cero, for sponsoring this beautiful space, for letting us use the studio, and everything else beyond that.
Right. So we're just going to jump right into it because we have an amazing guest waiting here. I'm so happy. Dr. Caroline Iscovitz. She's been empowering women for about 11 years now, and her career started in the field of psychology, specializing in marriage and family therapy. She's now a female entrepreneur coach, helping women entrepreneurs put themselves at the top of their priority list. She does this through addressing and identifying gaps around work-life integration, self-love, boundaries, and emotional balance in relationships. This is a professional in her field. She's an expert, and I would like to say she's my friend. So we'd like to bring her on now, Dr. Iscovitz, to bless us with her presence and her knowledge.
Yes, but just before we start with the beautiful conversation, for those of you who are new to the show, A Life on Purpose is all about navigating the world, living a purposeful life in every way possible. So looking at what it means to live purposefully from a variety of angles. And the show was inspired by the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai.
Right, 100%. So thank you, Lina, for about the show. Yes, this is important.
Beautiful. So yes, welcome, Dr. Caroline.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here amongst both of you. I call both of you my friends, and I'm just excited to be on such a beautiful platform that you've created, A Life on Purpose. And I truly resonate with your mission, and that's why I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And oh my goodness, what a topic to start the year with, how to make yourself a priority. I think with all of us now,
it's like the theme.
Yeah,
it's the theme.
It's how to be your best self, and it's been such a key theme we've noticed for everybody of stepping into more self-love, valuing yourself more, which obviously comes with some challenges. And one of the things that I'm personally excited to hear about from you is the topic of boundaries. I think we were never taught how to really set boundaries.
Definitely not.
This one.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah. We had we had like a little technical blurb. Could you still hear us?
Now I can. I'm just like, I think it froze. I don't know. You never know with live.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what's going to happen, but we're there. What I was saying was just really congratulations on your show going on YouTube as well. I've kind of been following you for a little bit now, so I can't wait for everyone to see what you have to offer on the platform.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just launched on Monday, so it's very, very new.
Very awesome. Can you talk a little bit about your show that's coming? What can people expect from you on the new platform and on the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called Morning Cup with Dr. C, and it's focused on right now. I have Monday Mindset. So every Monday, it's a quote and just motivation to get your week started powerfully and inspiration as well. And then I've been talking a lot of different topics right now that I have coming, a lot around mompreneurs, because that is my target audience that I work with. Just kind of happened. I'm not a mom yet, but being able to really help mompreneurs, because I do think that's the hardest population when it comes to prioritizing ourselves, because kids come first, or the spouse or partner. But really being able to put yourself first so you have more overflow, which we'll definitely talk about. But that's one of the big topics. And also a huge part of my doctorate, I did a lot of research around childhood obesity and mindful eating. So I created a whole program in my dissertation. I'll be talking a lot about the pandemic and childhood obesity as well, and how moms can support their children in that too. Just things that I've learned along the way from the research I've done. And it's something I'm super passionate about, because I do believe the mind and body are so connected. And that's what the channel is really all about. But those are the main topics right now that I'm going to be speaking on. And of course, boundaries as well, Lina, and being able to really just love ourselves from the inside out, because I think that's so important. So that's what I'm really excited about with my show.
That's awesome. I know you said you're not a mom, but you have a nephew, right?
A niece,
A niece,
yes.
right? You have a because I saw that on your page, and I saw you guys like playing around a little bit, like with a card, like "Hello, Auntie" or something like that on your page.
Yeah, no, she's 16 months now. Such a spitfire, so sassy, but like the sweetest little thing ever. She's already half my size.
Right, like I said, I haven't been stalking you. I have just been paying attention.
It was on recent posts, so you're just being relevant.
It's called being interested. It's being interested.
Yes, of course.
Well,
that's what friends do, right?
100%.
That's it. If I may jump in already
go ahead.
with a question, I think that, as you mentioned, with the mums and needing to balance a lot of priorities, I think it's very relevant to a vast majority of our population. So what I'd be interested to know is, what is the kind of common theme that you see around why people find it difficult to prioritize themselves, or to put themselves first in a variety of scenarios?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up and that question, because myself, like, even though I'm not a mom, a lot of these themes are things I struggled with, and people close to me that aren't parents maybe just yet. But it's also just family dynamics, whether you are the person that's a caretaker for an older parent, or younger siblings, or just families or cousins, things along those lines. But I think the biggest thing is, a lot of, like, I can speak for myself, but I'm definitely a former people pleaser, where it's really hard for me to say no. So that's why I think it becomes almost burnout too, because you're juggling all these responsibilities, or you're taking on so much, overcommitting, overdoing, and just really not looking at yourself, because you're focused on, well, I want to be able to make sure everyone's taken care of, then I'll worry about myself. It's like that saying where it's like, I'll sleep when I die. And it's like, well, you got to take care of yourself now. And like, I'm guilty of like working really hard, but it's finding that balance. And I think it's really difficult when you do have that people pleaser in you, or you just really want to help other people. But it's, if you don't take care of yourself first, you're not going to have the energy and the withband to do that for everybody else and yourself, most importantly. So I think that's like the biggest thing I see with like the theme across people pleasing.
Wow, that's so powerful. And they mentioned the burnout as well, which I think is a huge thing to jump on, because like, how can people step out of this cycle of burnout? Because I think we've all been there, when we kind of know what we need to do, right? We know, we say I need to put myself first. I need to take care of myself. But we have these ingrained patterns within ourselves, or, the family dynamics, as you mentioned, that make it difficult. So how have you seen, whether it is in your clients or yourself, the shift happen? And how can people really what steps can they take to step out of that cycle?
Oh, yes. So there is like 5 stages of burnout. I'm not going to go through them right now, but they're like, it's all over Google if you just Google that in. But the biggest thing I think with burnout is when it becomes chronic, because we can be stressed out in like phases of our lives and we have a big
Right.
project coming up, launch or anything along those lines. But I think when we are getting in this cycle of burnout, it's like I noticed it was a pattern from very early on in my life, and I didn't really do anything about it until I hit rock bottom, where my hair started falling out. I dropped a ton of weight.
Wow.
My teeth actually in the back of my molars like cracked from stress, and I didn't even realize it until all those symptoms happened. And like, just I think too, when we're able, it's preventing it, and we can like do it once it like hits, I think is the problem, where it becomes the burnout and it's so intense, like my experience. And that's why I'm like so passionate about like preventing other people from going down the road I did, if I can in any way possible. But I think when we start to recognize signs of stress, are we taking a break, not just a weekend away and then not taking another vacation for the year, but like, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis? Are we taking just a couple breaths? Like, I know a lot of my moms, like they'll like block themselves in the bathroom for like just a couple seconds just to get away, because kids will follow you into the bathroom
and put their hands under the door like this, right?
Exactly. It's like, Mom, are you in there? But being able to really take those little small breaks, or just walking outside and having some sunshine on your face. If you live somewhere cold, like I'm in Colorado, it gets cold, but it also is sunny. So even just like stepping outside for a few minutes can do a world of a difference, where you're just not thinking about anything for just a couple minutes can do so much. Or even if it's like, because I'm learning a lot from going from the tropical, like Florida to Colorado, and the differences. But I think when we're able to kind of, if we're in a warm climate, it's a lot easier to get outside, work out. But in the colder climate, you want to stay inside, or in like, it's more cozy, but like maybe doing a home workout or doing yoga. Or another really thing that was super helpful for me was the Calm app. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but it's definitely been super helpful when it comes to just like meditating and being like in the zone for just like 2 minutes. So just those little things can really help prevent burnout. The other thing is just emotionally, it becomes taxing too. So if you're able to communicate what's going on for you, I think I lost them. Hopefully we come back. But I'll just keep going until they come back. Got to roll the punches in technology. But I think, the biggest thing is just really being able to, when you're talking about emotions and being able to deal with burnout, it's really important to communicate what's going on for you. Because if you're going in this cycle of not communicating what's going on, or asking for a break, or delegating, that can be really taxing on yourself, but also everyone around you as well in your community. So I think hopefully it'll come back soon. But in the meantime, it's great to be on here. Lina and Peter are amazing people.
So
I'm just going with it.
Somehow we left. Yeah, Lina got up there to do her technical thing, because that's not what I do.
Me neither. Lina, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So awesome. I'm so glad that the stream was still there though. That's awesome. I'm very glad.
I kept talking, so hopefully.
Perfect.
Yeah. Apologies for that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah. There's nothing to do about like the internet connection in whatever.
Okay.
I appreciate you expanding on that a bit, talking about, like the boundaries and setting some time aside, and especially for those mothers that have to lock themselves in the bathrooms. Like, I feel you. I understand. It's one thing to talk about these things, right? And there's another thing about like the application process. And I've gone through this a few times with clients for myself, or posted this even on Instagram about, setting those boundaries, yes, but having it into something practical that you can do in your life every single day. Because the problem obviously isn't information, right? Just like you said, we can Google right now and find out all the information. The problem is integration. So what do you think is that step that's missing between the information that you provide, right? That's very, very sound, the information that is there available, and someone integrating it into their life so that they don't experience burnout, so they don't have, postpartum depression or all the other things that you see your clients face. How do you help someone to navigate that?
Yeah, no, that's an amazing question, because I do think that's the key point to it. It's accountability, right? When we hold
Mm.
ourselves accountable to make those changes, because just like in the new year, everyone's like, okay, new year, new me, and I'm going to work out
Mhm.
every single day and do meal prep and like these extravagant
Right.
goals. And amazing if you can do it. But I think too, it becomes so much larger than life, and you have to take it by baby steps, and it's practicing. And like, especially with
Mm.
boundaries too, they're so hard to set, but even harder to implement and enforce and solidify. And that's where I think with my clients too, it's taking those baby steps of what can you do today and practicing it, or being even aware. Once we're aware of what's going on, we can take those action steps. But if we're just absorbing all this information, that's it. That's all we're doing. We're not taking that into action and being able to solidify, okay, well, maybe I need to take a break. How can I maybe set a timer, knowing this is my time to take that 2 minute like
Mm.
breathing exercise, or like just doing those little things and making it a priority, and asking somebody else to hold you accountable too, whether it's somebody in your family, a best friend, your coach, whoever is like in your corner, that's going to help you stay
Right.
accountable until it becomes a habit. Because I think once it becomes a habit, it becomes second
Mhm.
nature. But those initial first few months of like setting boundaries and like following through are so difficult. I've been there, done
Mm.
that. That's why I know. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but I think
Right.
it's just giving yourself grace and compassion in that process too, because you're going to stumble, but that's okay. That's part of life.
Mm.
And just understanding that and not being so hard on yourself when it's not like perfect or how you were expecting it to be. So I think that's
Mm.
what can really derail people from not doing it or continuing.
Yes, exactly. I completely agree. And I found this for myself as well, like having multiple almost pillars of accountability, like you said, having the timer in
Mm.
your phone, having that person check in on you, making yourself accountable to other people socially, so that when, those little slip ups happen, because they will, because we're
Mhm.
not perfect, as you said, that you have something to get you kind of back on track. And I think, yeah, having this kind of perfectionism mentality really is actually the issue, more than anything, of trying to do something super like perfectly when we don't even know what that means. And I love
Yeah.
that you mentioned the little steps. This is something Peter talks about all the time, that big steps don't actually exist. We use this
Yeah.
vocabulary of, yeah, take big steps. We took a giant leap today, but actually all you did was small steps, where you took small steps that then turned into something big.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if you even think of like going through school, for instance, you're not going to jump from like kindergarten to 12th grade, unless you're like a super prodigy. So you got
Right.
to take those steps, even in school. Like you take a test and then you get like homework and everything along those lines to get that final grade. And I'm using school as an example because there's a lot of moms,
Right.
but it's also tangible too. It's you don't go from 0 to 100. Sometimes you can, but realistically, when we're speaking, it's like 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 5, but like it is those increments. And I think that's what to remember too, because you're looking at the big picture, but I always look backwards for my goals. So it's like, that's the big picture. What steps do I
Mm.
have to take every single day to get to that bigger goal? But I agree with both of you. I think it is those like little steps that really make such a difference. And remembering we're not perfect. And
Mm.
I'm a
Right.
recovering perfectionist, I would say, trying to be such a people pleaser. As Brene Brown says, recovering
Right.
perfectionist.
Mhm.
And thank you especially too, like, for bringing in that part of vulnerability and tell us about your own personal experience. Because,
Yeah.
it's one thing to just read it in a book
Yeah.
and say, oh, these are the steps because this is what the book says. Like, you've lived through it. And that's where I think like some of your profound expertise comes from. Because I heard you talk about this before, and I understand now that you said that, where the depth comes from, like when you speak on the topic.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the subconscious mind, right? Lina,
Mhm.
Lina knows this as well. I'm fascinated by it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think people give the subconscious enough respect, whereby everything that we do, say, and think is being recorded there.
Mm.
Can you talk a little bit about that in your work, the subconscious mind? How can people navigate that, and how does that relate to making yourself a top priority?
Yeah, no, I love this. The subconscious mind is just, it's so fascinating because there's still so much we don't know about
Right.
the brain, like so much.
Right.
But no, I do agree. I think there's so many elements. It's like sometimes we're on autopilot of what we're
Mm,
thinking or feeling. Even just the other day, like one of my friends was saying something really negative about herself, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on, like that's being recorded. Like I did say something like similar to
right.
those lines. And it's remembering too, like whatever we're telling ourselves, what especially subconsciously, we're not
Mm,
realizing how much it impacts us. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this experiment where it's with plants, and they had plants of like two different sets of plants. Lena knows, right? So like you talk positive to one set of the plants and they grow
mhm,
beautifully, and then the other one you're saying negative things to and they start to die, and you see the
mm,
difference. And that's just a testament to how the subconscious mind does work in plant form. But I do
right.
believe that when we are like, it's saying affirmations or really visualizing things too, to the depth of it. If you're saying, well, I want to do this but I can't because of this, you're already putting it out
Mm,
negatively to yourself, whether you're saying it out loud or to yourself, writing it down. But it's really truly believing in that for ourselves. But when it comes to our subconscious mind, habits that we're creating too, a lot of it might be something we were told as a child. And that's been ingrained in us
mm,
for years of just like, I'm not good enough, or just maybe even our perception. It might have not even been said to us, but the
right.
perception we have as ourselves. Like, for instance, that was one of my core things that I've worked through intensely, is not being enough. And it was no one ever
Mm,
told me that ever, but it was all subconscious of just the perception I had of my world at that age and those vulnerable ages as well. But now it's being able to stand in that power and truly understand how it was so impactful of our subconscious and how that we bring that awareness to the conscious so we can make those changes. But it's so much harder if we're not aware of it. And that's why I think we all have blind spots and we're always
mhm,
growing and evolving. But when we're able to identify those blind spots, it can be so transformational for ourselves, but everyone around us too, because then we're seeing a light in a different aspect and we're seeing ourselves grow. But I think the subconscious mind is so powerful, and we still, like I said, have no idea how powerful. But even there's I think scientifically, I think it's escaping me the number. I think like 60 or 70,000 thoughts we have a day. But how many
mm,
negative thoughts are we thinking? How many things are we telling ourselves that are not allowing us to progress and keeping us stuck or stunted of where we could truly reach our potential? Because we all have that potential. It's just a matter of when we tap into it. And that, I mean, I could talk hours about it, but like
right.
it's
And I
really
could listen to it because, like I said, this is so
Yeah.
fascinating to me. What does it truly mean behind the you? Like the thing that you don't show people. How much power does that have over what shows up? I
yeah.
read some really interesting research about mindset and nutrition. And it turns out that you can be losing up to 65% of the nutrients from the food that you're taking in if you're not in the proper mindset. If you're in a state of doubt, anxiety, depression, anger, we could be eating the same banana and you're not getting the nutrients out of the banana than I am. That's insane, right? If you really think about that, your mindset has so much to do with your well-being. And you talked about, how to integrate it as well. What are some of the steps that someone can take when it comes to like their mindset? What are some of the tools, that someone could utilize? You mentioned a little bit about, like journaling and, how to navigate some of those fields. Do you have any other tools that you would recommend for people to utilize?
Yeah, no, I think a big part too, it's like that mind body connection and able to
Mhm.
regularly like exercise, whether it's dancing. Like I love to dance and sing in the car. I'm not very good.
We have so
A
much in
dancing
common.
machine over here.
So that's like somewhat of a release. It might not be a full workout,
Mm,
but like releasing that energy that's like kind of stuck inside of us sometimes.
Mm.
But like yoga is so powerful. Just getting
mm,
outside and walking for like 15 minutes can make such a difference too, or even just going to the gym, whatever it may be, but a physical aspect, because that will really help with the mindset too, because there's so much studies around depression and anxiety with like working out, yoga to really reduce that. and that goes along with our mindset, but also nutrients as well, like just being able to have healthy like lifestyle. I'm not a nutritionist, but I definitely have tapped into that world and for myself, and just supplementation and like making sure what I'm eating and how that impacts me, because I do think it's important to be mindfully eating, because our body chemistry is also different, but like what works for us and what's going to help us too. Because if you're eating stuff that's not as nutritious, you're going to maybe feel that mindset wise. You might feel tired and groggy and not want to do the things that you want to do. So that's part of it. And then the other thing that people can start doing right away is just being able to talk to yourself nicer. That's one thing that I see a lot of. Like even in the mirror, like the power pose. I forgot. I saw it on a TED Talk a while back. But like you stand in a power. Lina, Lina.
I'm like, we need to hang out.
Yes, I know. I'll come to Mexico soon. But no, it's true. Like when we stand in the mirror and like feel empowered from the inside out, and like just looking at ourselves and really like saying affirmations too in that power pose. You might not believe it. Like I've had a client in the past in my therapy world, but being able to do affirmations because there was a lack of confidence. And when I would have her like write down the affirmations she believed in at that moment, because there's a lot that like sometimes we don't believe in it at that moment, but like things that she did believe about herself. And I made her hold the mirror up and say it. I did this with a couple clients and they did not like me at that moment, but the transformation that happened. And it goes back to that accountability for them, like saying it in front of themselves. Like I saw the shift of their mindset and it was so powerful, but it's like doing little things. It doesn't have to be everything I said, but try one thing at a time and get good at that. And then try another thing. And some days you might not feel that way and that's okay. Just recognizing that we all have good days and bad days. That's like bottom line. But those are some things to just get people started. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. That's so powerful. Yes, it definitely helps. And I think, what you mentioned that really stood out for, to kind of recap is number one is really awareness, because you can't really change anything, right, if you're not aware of it. And then the second thing, which is key that you said, is having a toolbox, because we never know, right, what we're going to need on a certain day. But if I may share something also a bit personal that I think would be helpful, as you were talking about, self-esteem and people pleasing, like this was my biggest thing to get through as well. And I remember that I said something out loud to my therapist one day, and I said, I was such a terrible child. And she was like, hold on a minute. She was like, were you a terrible child, or were you a terrible child in the eyes of that person? And she said, whose voice is that? And that from that moment on, I started questioning, like, whose voice is this actually in my head that has these doubts about myself? Because we weren't born with them. So it came from somewhere. And so, as you said, like having just that awareness, that really helped me to start seeing when I'm talking to myself in a negative way, is it actually me, or have I picked up somebody else's voice? And like you said, the mind-body connection, this is something that Peter changed my world with, because I used to try to just fight the mind with the mind, so just using affirmations, just journaling about it. And I found that it actually was a lot more tedious, but then bringing in the somatic expression, like tapping into my body and listening to that and releasing that, and not even sometimes even engaging the thought, I found was way more powerful than going or trying to do it in one way. So I think being open to trying a variety of things, like you said, is really, really important.
Yeah,
Lina
no,
always
I love
knows how to bring in some really powerful examples here. But please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to say, I think it's so important what you touched on with what your therapist was saying too. When the child, it's like the perception of like the world that you're having, or those thoughts, like people do not realize the impact they have on one another. And if we were kinder to ourselves, just think how like kinder to other people too. Because sometimes, you know, I've come across people, you can tell they're having a bad day. I don't think they're a bad person, but you can just tell something's
Right.
off. But it's realizing, like for me, I'm always like, wow, what are they going through? What's happening for them internally that they can't express it? And I think that's the biggest thing, like being able to express yourself through journaling, but also communicating. Like I go to a therapist too. I think every great therapist, every coach has a therapist, has a coach, has a village. But being able to realize too, when we're communicating to someone else, having that soundboard where they're going to ask us a question or really change our thinking process around maybe something that's been so ingrained in us from early
Right.
on. It's really important to just understand too, when we get it out of our system, not keep it inside. That's when we start suppressing, and it can come out as physical issues too, because we're not addressing the root of what's going on as well. Because I do think it can be both mind and body, but sometimes it's because we're not addressing things where we're communicating, and communication is like key in every relationship, and the most important, the relationship with yourself too. Because if you're not communicating or listening to that intuition and trusting your gut of what's going on for you, that's going to become a problem later on in other relationships too. You're going to see that pattern that flows through sometimes.
So I have a question to jump off of this, if I may.
Go ahead,
Peter.
of course.
Oh, you just touched on something really, really big, which is self-trust. Because as I was listening to you, I was thinking, you know, about, it's one thing to kind of to know, okay, I need to be kinder to myself. I need to, you know, become more aware. But trusting yourself, how has your experience for yourself and in your clients been in actually developing more self-trust and listening to your intuition? Because I think a lot of us, that's kind of the point that we struggle with, is we get these steps, but there's an element missing of, we don't trust that the decisions we're going to make for ourselves are going to be the right ones, especially if you've for the longest time, you know, been a people pleaser and depended on somebody else's validation. So what would be your advice in that, in building that, or what are some commonalities that you see with that theme?
Yeah, I mean, with the commonalities, the first thing that popped in my head was disappointment, like not wanting to disappoint others. I do think that's where it's harder to make those decisions of trusting yourself, because you know when you choose yourself, you're gonna maybe let somebody down, and it's not intentional to let them down. But I think that's what I've noticed for myself and for my clients too. But I think when we learn to trust, it's creating those boundaries. It feels uncomfortable, it's scary, but that's like the part of making that decision to, okay, I'm going to choose myself now. I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to prioritize my needs, because if my needs aren't met, who's going to meet my needs? Because at the end of the day, you can have other people meet your needs, but not all of your needs, not one person. The only person that can do that is yourself. And it is hard. It does take time, and it does take a lot of practice, especially if you've never trusted yourself or always put that validation in others. Again, it's like those small little moments of just making a decision. Sometimes it could be the smallest decision of where you're going to eat, and saying, like, I don't care when you want to go maybe to get like Mexican versus sushi versus like Thai, whatever it is.
Right.
But I think too, it's understanding that it does take time, and you'll feel it over that period of time. Once you start setting those boundaries, the first like 5, 10, 20 are going to be uncomfortable, but then you start to get that sense of empowerment, and I'm standing my ground, and I trust that this decision is the best for me. And something very small to start off with, one thing I used to do is like a pros and cons list when I was making a decision. My mom actually taught me that, like when I was a lot younger, but I would write down, okay, here's the pros and the cons, and what weight do they hold as well? Like reading it from like 1 to 10 of the importance. And when we're able to do that, I think that can start that ball to roll a little bit. If you want, or at home and can do that right away when it's a tough decision, or even like a small decision. But just starting small and something that's very simple, you can do it in your phone, like it on your notes section. But that's what I would say, at least when you're starting.
Right. I think those are like excellent points. And I love how you guys took it to the part about like self-trust, you know, because really, I feel like that was one of the major elements that was missing even from my own life. because the self that is speaking to you, that's trying to pull you towards, your higher self, or, you know, trying to pull you towards your destiny, if you want to call it, or your purpose. These things are typically very subtle.
Yeah.
And one of the problems, and the reason why I have a lot of empathy for this next generation, for people who I come across, is because we live in a really noisy world, right? The world that we're designing right now is actually not conducive for self-reflection. It's actually not conducive for mindfulness. It's not conducive for people to have time for themselves, because everything is telling us that we are not good enough, right? You have on a dress right now. That dress is not good enough, actually, because I have the new dress coming, right? You got a TV on your wall. That TV is not good enough. We got the new flat screen with the HD with the lights in the back, like all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? The part where people should have a little bit of empathy on themselves, because we live in a world that is actually, we are under attack, actually. Our senses are, and this is not how human beings are designed. Can you speak about that a bit, and what people can look for in their lives about technology, society, or things that from the external may be impacting them that they may not realize?
Yeah, no, I think you touched on such an important point of technology, of how kids are growing up with technology. Like even my niece, she can like hold the phone up to her ear. My sister and like her spouse like have not done that, but like when she was younger, but she just like will hold up anything and act as if she's on the phone, and she's 16 months old.
Right.
But I think kids know how to like open up the phone or like are on the computer so much. And then on top of it, you have the pandemic, where a lot of kids have been on the computer screen longer than they normally are. Like school was on Zoom or Teams or whatever the program was using for each school. But I think that's the problem. So you have like TV also as a babysitter. Sometimes these parents are working 1 or 2 full-time jobs each just to make ends meet. And then being able to like have the kids at home, the TV becomes the babysitter sometimes, because they can't physically be there, because they're making sure that they're provided for. So there's a lot of issues around that, I think. But going back to, I go on tangents sometimes. I think the biggest thing is being able to have the time away from the screen, like doing things as a family, even if it's only like a 15-minute walk as a family, or playing a board game, getting away from the screen for a little bit of time so you can be present. So phones away at dinner, or like being able to have these little moments where you're not constantly on the phone too. So you have time to reflect as a whole. Individually, I think it's being able to be mindful of, okay, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, and I'm going to be present with my partner. I'm going to be present for myself right now, and just making those moments, the quality of them too. Because I think when we don't have that, it's hard. It's like, I mean, I put my phone away when I'm with my boyfriend. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this away. Like we're focused on our conversation. And I think that is so important. And even with friends, like being able to FaceTime, you're using technology. However, like you're present with your friend. If you're not physically there, especially with COVID and everything going on, you might not be able to physically be in their presence, which is the beautiful thing about technology. And right now we're able to connect on technology, but I think creating those moments as much as you can, as often as you can. So even if it's, you may have work all day on the computer, how can you find just those pockets of time throughout the day, or even at least once a day, I would say, away from a screen, away, just give yourself that time to reflect on your day. Giving yourself even 5 minutes can do a world of a difference if you're just being intentional about it. And I think that's the biggest thing, being intentional.
Right. I love it, because realistic, there's nothing you can do about the world that we live in already, unless you're going to move to the Himalayas, which was kind of my plan until I met Lina.
I love it.
I'm not kidding either. Like that was actually my plan. Because it's like, you walk outside the house, there's like, billboards, and, like your senses are picking up all of this, right? You walk into a store, 15 smells from the perfume department attack your nostrils. You're walking into the store, and there's like, a magazine with pretty much like pornography, like right there on the shelf. You walk up to the counter and there's all these different temptations, whether that be like, my favorite candy bar or, something like that. Or if you're, into drinking or something along those nature, like every single step of the way, it seems like we're being attacked by the external. So it's really important to have tools for our well-being. So I really appreciate you sharing those, because without those things, now you're walking out of your house every single day without your armor. And that's one of the things I think is really important about what you're saying, is making yourself a top priority, because you can't give more empathy than you have for yourself. You can't love externally more than you love yourself. So if you don't arm yourself and put yourself as a top priority, every single thing in your life will have a depleted version of yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love how you put that because it's true. It's very true. When we are not giving ourselves that like you can be giving so much to everybody else. And I mean, I'm going to use myself as an example, but like everything was always, I became last. I was focused on my clients, and I saw about like 30 clients on a weekly basis when I was practicing therapy. And that was like families, couples, and I loved it. I love the field of psychology. I'm a huge advocate for it still to this day, even though I don't practice anymore. But I think it's really important when we're recognizing, okay, well, my energy is low. Okay, what am I doing right now? And it's like, well, I'm doing everything for everyone, and it's important. I got to get this done for school or for work or for family. But at the end of the day, if things are happening physically to you, that's a warning sign. If you are irritated more, that's a sign. Like, it's being able to just really tune into your energy. And that's something I work a lot with my clients, of just understanding, okay, how are you feeling about this? It's more of just how you're feeling, but like, what actions are you taking to solidify, okay, well, I need to take that break. Why? Like, what's the why behind it? Because people will do things, but if you don't have that bigger why, it's going to be really hard to achieve that, because you need to have that depth of like why you're doing this too. Because without that, you're going to fall back into that same pattern and cycle.
That's so true. It makes me think of a quote that I really love, where, self-care is actually a form of loving somebody else as well, because you're giving them the best of you, not the rest of you. It's like I say, I need to take care of me so that I can give you the best of me, not just the rest of me. And I love how you brought it back, actually kind of full circle to the beginning of talking about, the mind-body connection and looking at it, awareness kind of more holistically, because oftentimes I find our bodies tell us first what's wrong before we have words for it, or our mind comes into play. So if you're disconnected from understanding, oh, I remember these heart palpitations. This happened when I was, anxious about this, or my stomach always starts to feel a little bit like this when I, in certain circumstances. Like, to read yourself fully, I think is a big part of that awareness, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that's the other thing too, because I love that you said, like, sometimes people can't find the words. And I know, like, people will stress eat or undereat. And it's like, well, it's just a stressful time, but like, it's more than stress, because it's become this pattern that keeps happening when you've overcommitted, or you're overdoing, or focused on everybody else, and you're forgetting about number one. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, it will transpire into something that you don't want to happen, just from personal experience. And I've seen with my clients. But I think the beautiful thing is when you recognize it, and you recognize it faster, because I think the cycle, it still happens. And that's something to be aware of too, but you're faster at catching it before it becomes a problem.
Right. So you're saying, like, pretty much,
I'm not gonna lie.
You're saying, like, these things don't think that you're just gonna chop them off completely. They'll still happen, but your recognition pattern will be different, and you will be able to interject the pattern so that it doesn't become a prolonged issue in your life.
Right. Because you have to remember too, life throws curveballs all the time. I mean, look at this past 2 years with COVID, and thinking it would just be a little bit of time, and it continues on, and I keep bringing it back to COVID, because that has affected people so much mentally and physically. and financially, spiritually, a lot of different things. Some for the better, where they're able to be aware of more things that are important, some for the worse, but
Right.
it's being able to recognize that and doing something about it. But I think the biggest thing is when we are able to recognize what's going on faster, we're able to do something. We're able to prevent it from continuing to happen or impacting those around us as well.
Right. Talk about a curveball.
Oh, yeah. We thought, this will be over in
Right.
2 months, and our lives changed completely.
Exactly. If I could bring in like one more like point, we're only like doing 45 minutes here, so I appreciate your time, and especially with like some computer internet glitches robbing us of our
Too much
time.
power.
But can we talk a little bit about the concept of resilience, right? Because this is one of the issues, I think, with not putting yourself first consistently, is you become less and less resilient to these curveballs that get thrown at you. Can you talk about that a bit, and how the correlation between putting yourself as the top priority can help you with becoming more resilient to life?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Wasn't expecting that question. Well, I wasn't expecting any questions. No, but I really like that one. That's why. But I think too, it goes back to when we're doing the work, we're building that stamina within ourselves to continue, when we're taking care of ourselves, when we're setting boundaries, when we're balancing what needs to come first versus what can wait. Because especially if you think of like a project you're working, if okay, I have 2 months to do it, but then a client needs you at like in that week span or like that day, you're able to adjust because the priority becomes the client and the project. You still have 2 months to work on it. So I think when we're able to really prioritize what comes first, like one thing I do on a daily basis is, or for the week, actually, I have my top 3 priorities that I need to focus on that day. And that comes to my health, because if I don't have my health, I don't have anything. My relationships, because those matter to me wholeheartedly, and my business, so I can financially do well. But those 3 things are important. But when I'm taking care of that on an everyday basis, that's what builds my resilience, because I know I'm taking care of what's important at that moment versus putting things off to the last minute, procrastinating when it becomes an issue. Because I think a lot of people procrastinate, but it's what can be procrastinated and what needs to get done right now. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in, they've procrastinated so much and they have all these time, like deadlines in that moment of like a launch or like 5 different pots that they have their hands in. But when it comes to working on it on a day-to-day basis, it's just being very mindful of what's important to you and how are you incorporating that on an everyday basis is what's going to build that resilience. Because when life does throw you a curveball, you're prepared more than if you were just like going at the seams and trying to do everything at once.
Right. So I love that, because I love that connection between the fact of, I said this to Lina all the time about, I don't do yoga for what's going to happen right now, not for today. The reason why I do like these practices and journaling and things of that nature is because one day something's going to happen with someone from my family. This is life, right? Something may happen with our finances. We may have an issue to resolve in our relationship. Something externally may happen that we just don't want to happen. And so we're thinking like, oh yeah, I'll just wait till I get stressed, then I'll do my practice. Or when, then I'll go do my affirmations. Like, no, you got to build that up over time. And so thank you for kind of validating that thought process, that it's, you have to really think and have some foresight about life and kind of see life for what it is and not just what you think it will be.
Right. And, just to that point too, it's like a great example is going to the gym. You're not going to get, if you don't have a 6-pack, you're not going to get one tomorrow. So it's like building over time, or just muscle memory as well, like building that muscle. So if like, let's say you fall, God forbid, like you have stronger muscles because you've been working out every day. That's what triggered the thought with yoga.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why I did some crunches this morning.
Perfect. See, you're set.
We're good to go, everyone. That's it. No, I love that. And, just to kind of wrap up, we always find it so difficult to end these conversations.
I don't want to go.
But I just wanted to thank you so much, really, for touching on so many relevant points, particularly for
Right.
everybody listening who is on a screen. What you mentioned about technology, taking time for yourself, building that resilience, the awareness to put yourself first, and most importantly, why you should and how that benefits you and your life. So I'd love to ask you one final question.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Caroline Iscovitz.
Yes.
Could you tell us briefly what it means to you to live a life on purpose?
Oh, such a big question.
Right.
I think for me, it's just really living my life is taking care of my health, my business, my relationships. Like I was saying, my priorities is being intentional of what do I want, why do I want it, and doing that on a day-to-day basis, like practicing what I preach. But I think for me, it's truly my health, so I can do things. My relationships are everything to me because it's your community. It's the people that matter on that journey with you, and just being able to help as many people as I can. And that's what my business is about, and helping people just listening as well. Yeah, that's for me.
Beautiful.
I love that.
I think that's awesome. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, like someone on this live or on the recording, is really interested in the things that you're saying and wants to reach out to you, where's the best place that they can find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always on Instagram, so it's just Dr. Caroline Iscovitz, and then my email is drcaroline@mindofdrc.com as well. So I'd be happy to chat on there as well.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that all that information is down in the copy below this video, so anyone watching can reach out to you. You said the thing a couple of times about health, and Lina's heard me say this before, that a healthy person wants everything, and an unhealthy person only wants one thing, and that's their health. So thank you.
Mic drop.
I was waiting for it.
So thank you so much for bringing that back in and for bringing the wholeness to it. I've never actually heard a psychologist talk about yoga, mindfulness, and those things in that way. So thank you so much for also bringing that in and for expanding your practice beyond just the mind, because as we know, it's one, we're in unison, right? We're not all separated. So thank you so much for the work that you continuously do and for just spending some time with us. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we collaborate.
Thank you so much for having me. I so enjoyed this conversation, and just you two are a breath of fresh air.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
so much appreciation for you and gratitude. And also to those of you watching us, thank you for being a part of this beautiful conversation. And if you're watching it on the replay as well, we would love to hear from you. What stood out to you the most from the beautiful points that Dr. Caroline made, how this video impacted you, and make sure to subscribe, follow us as well. And most importantly, follow our guest.
This is new. I'm new to YouTube. I don't know if this is different. I'm new to the platform as well, but Dr. Caroline as well has her show coming. So please check that out. We'll put the link there as well for her show coming. So, you can see more of what she has to offer, get some more information about her program, and just the fabulous information that she has to share with the world.
That's it.
All right. Much love to you guys. Lina's going to have to walk around to end the live. So I'm just kind of saying it like that. But this has been really a blessing. Thank you so much. Peace out. Love you guys.